Welcome to Business Mentorship, Keeping It Real, where we introduce corporate leaders who have taken the leap to business owner and participate with their great idea in our guest blog, found on shareyourstories.online. Our guest joins us today from Toronto, Ontario. Joanna Track is a serial entrepreneur with a background in publishing and marketing, who is known as a digital expert and content creator. Let's hear how this serial entrepreneur is helping small businesses create content that drives engaging results. It is my pleasure to introduce and welcome Joanna Track.
Hello, Trish. So nice to see you.
You know, you were one of the first 100 businesses that we featured in the shareyourstories.online series. So I know a lot has happened since you posted your original story. At that time, you were the founder of Bullet. So
Yes.
Give us sort of the Reader's Digest version of what
What's
you've been up to
happened
since then. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't remember exactly which year I did the article, but I believe it was in the early days of the Bullet, which was launched in 2016. And, that business grew. We were having great success. Then COVID came, and like many people, it threw us quite through a loop. For us, while the Bullet was the front-facing business that most people saw, where we made most of our revenue was white labeling our service to other companies. So we were doing newsletters for a lot of bigger organizations, the biggest being Cadillac Fairview. So it was a very lucrative contract, but when the malls closed, so did the contract. And so it put us into quite a tailspin. And we were really just trying to keep the lights on. And then somewhere that year, I was approached by Arlene Dickinson. It turned out she was a reader and fan of the Bullet and my blog, and reached out, and we kind of started a pen pal ship where she would check in once in a while. And when things got really stark, I didn't ask her for money. I just asked her for advice on what I should do given where we were at. And obviously, like anyone, we had no end in sight for the pandemic. And she ended up making an offer to acquire the business. And so myself and my team merged with her. She has a number of businesses, as most people know, but we merged with the ad agency, and we created a division dedicated to content marketing, which I ran for about 2 years. One of the life lessons, which I tend to accumulate all the time along the way, was after 20 years of being an entrepreneur, going in and working in a bigger organization was very challenging for me. Not exactly my passion. And so, while very grateful for the opportunity, and I met a lot of fantastic people, actually, a number of them now are here with me in my new business. After my contractual obligation was up, I decided that I was meant to be back in my entrepreneurial chair. So
Your roots.
I got back to my roots. And so I reestablished Good Eggs and Co., which had been a consultancy I had used as my brand back in the early, 2011, 2014. And so now for the last 2 years, Good Eggs, we are a content marketing firm. We don't like to use the word agency because we really operate differently. We don't do billable hours. Our structure isn't like account person, creatives. We don't have any account people. It's myself and my business partner, Sam. And any of our creative team are hybrid account people because we feel that they should be just as accountable and engaged in the client relationship. And we really consider ourselves a fractional marketing team. So we insert ourselves within an organization, big or small, based on like what their gaps are and what their needs are. So it allows them the flexibility to utilize these resources and bring experts in at a fraction of what it would take for a full-time, because for many organizations, they don't need a full-time writer and a full-time design team. And so that's how we really add value. And it's been really great. We work with a lot of also small businesses, female-led entrepreneur businesses. And then on the other end, we work with some pretty large corporate entities. And so it gives us a lot of diversity. And, we do strategy, we do email marketing, social media, SEO, pretty much everything in the digital realm.
Sure. Now that's really your background, right? Because at one point in time, you were actually in the academic field teaching digital marketing, correct?
Yes, I was.
Yeah.
That was also pre-pandemic. And for a number of years before that, I was a part-time professor at York University in the business undergrad program teaching digital marketing, which I really loved, but it also gave me a lot of an inferiority complex because the students in that class are probably much more knowledgeable on the latest technologies and
Right.
innovations. So they were
Yeah.
teaching me while I was teaching them like fundamentals, and they were teaching me the latest trends.
Isn't that the truth though? Because the digital world is really intimidating. I mean, I know as a small business owner, every time I sit down and I go to use a program and I think, oh, geez, they've changed it again. Now I have to try to
Mhm.
figure out how to use it. So if you were our viewing and listening audience are saying, yeah, I hear you. I get that the digital space, moves at Mach 2 with your hair on fire. Is there a tip that you can share with the folks who are listening to say, is there anything that I can do? How do you stay on top of everything?
Well, the short answer is I don't. And so the longer answer is I would say it's like one of two things, and maybe it's a combination. For me, what has worked is I surround myself with people who have become experts in those. And I am, again, more the fundamentals strategy person. And
Right.
that top stuff doesn't tend to really change, even if, the new innovations come in, the practices are the practices.
Sure.
I think the other method that I've seen is you can't become an expert in all of it. It's just not possible. So
Right.
you have to pick a lane. So say, that AI really floats your boat, you're excited about it, then, learn it, study it, and immerse yourself in it, become an
Sure.
expert in that. Social media, even in of itself, like it's really hard to be a pro on all the channels. But,
Sure.
I think if you dedicate yourself to that, but to think that you're going to be like an email aficionado and a social media expert and an AI genius,
Yeah,
I
this
don't know that that's realistic or and even really of value to somebody.
that I always say I don't have enough brain space to
Right.
sort of learn all this stuff, right? Because not only are we entrepreneurs, but we're trying to live a life too. So, you can only fit so much into an 8 hour, 10 hour, 12 hour day. And there's only so
Absolutely.
much time in the week, right?
Absolutely. And the other thing I would say too, and my brother actually always says this, he's a personal trainer, and he always says, like, you're not going to do something that you don't like. So he says, if I say to my client, you should swim 3 times a week, and they hate swimming or they don't have access to a pool, what's the point? It's not going to
Right.
happen.
Right.
So the thing is someone says to you, you need to know about AI, and AI has no interest to you. It's not going to
Yeah.
stick. So like what I have accepted within myself is that I'm very passionate about email. I always have been. That's where I started my own entrepreneurial journey in an email driven business. And so that's where I lean in, and I surround myself with the people who have leaned into other specialties.
What I love is your use of fractional intelligence, we'll call it, because you've really tapped into people who have become an expert in a lane, right?
Exactly. Well, that's one of the reasons we call ourselves good eggs, is that I've always stood by my promise to my clients that having been in this industry for so long, I believe that I know the best people in the business within any lane area to get the job done. And
Yeah.
then it's also the other reason for that term is, we think we're good eggs in the sense of the culture and the way we treat people and the way we manage. So it's like the soft and the hard skills.
Right, right. Now, as an entrepreneur, you've been in your own business and coming up with some great ideas and doing that over and over for a number of years. Is there a personality trait that you feel has held you through all of those years of business success that you've had to lean in on when the going gets tough?
Well, if you're a masochist, I guess part masochist, part delusional optimist, um, part very agile, flexible. I think I don't know if I could nail it down to one,
The one, yeah.
perseverance, because it's really, so many people say to me all the time, like, I don't know how you do it. I'd be so nervous. I'm so scared. That doesn't ever, even for my first business, like scared of failure never crossed my mind.
Right.
It's just like there was only one path. So I think that's just an innate feeling that a person has that, that's like what gets you over the hurdle to think about something versus going out and executing on it.
Yeah, for sure. Now, we did get a question from our viewing and listening
Mm.
audience for you. And our question is from Sue. And she says, does Joanna have any tips for those of us who may be thinking about selling our business?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny. Thanks, Sue. Someone just asked me this question the other day. They said, how did you find the people to sell your company? I mean, I just briefly talked about Arlene, and then my first business I sold to Rogers. Well, in both cases, they approached me. So it wasn't like I didn't go out looking for like a business broker to buy the business. But I think that said, there's a few things that I would say have been consistent between the different experiences. And one was both relationships started more like a partnership conversation. So it's kind of like the date before you get married, because selling your business is a really big deal. Now, unless you know for whatever reason, like you are out, if you're just looking for like what's the next step, it doesn't have to necessarily be you're out. When I first partnered or engaged with Rogers, it was almost a strategic alliance where we were going to, cross promote one another and help each other in certain initiatives. So I think that's one way to sort of lessen the enormity of undertaking such a thing.
Yeah.
But then the other thing is if you really are going down the lane of trying to exit, you really have to have your ducks in a row. I mean, it is like going for the most comprehensive physical of your life. They're going to look under every cover, every nook and cranny. And so it can really take you out of your business. So the way to mitigate that is that even if you're not actively out there looking for an exit, you should always make sure your financials are in order, you have everything documented. I know it's easier said than done, but it's just good sound business to have that stuff at the ready, for any type of opportunity. If you have to start scrambling, it becomes really counterproductive.
You know what? That's really good advice, because I think that when we see success stories of people selling businesses, we think, oh, well, that was really easy peasy. Somebody came along, put a chunk of money on the table, you said yes or no, and then that was the end of it. But, to your point, there's a lot of things behind the scenes that we have to make sure that we have prepared and ready to go. And you can't do it in the last minute. Like it just wouldn't work.
It doesn't work. And also, most entrepreneurs are so busy in the day to day. And also, a lot of them, especially if you don't have a partner, say you keep so much in your head. So
Right.
now all of a sudden, someone comes along and says, oh, everything that's in your head isn't going to work. You need to actually put it on paper. So do you want to have to do that all at once, or do you want to do it as you go? So, like, whether it's procedures and policies and financial information, history. I mean, I'm so guilty of this every year when it comes to year end with my accountant. He's asking me questions about transactions that happened 11 months ago. And I'm like, I don't know. I don't remember. And all I would have had to do is take proper notes.
Yeah.
So
That's
someone's
so
not going
true.
to acquire your company if you can't answer what these things are.
You know what? That's probably the most valuable tip that I think I've ever heard from someone who's gone through the experience, to be quite honest. The note taking, the financials and all of that, we rely on our accountant, right? And you may have a brand book already, so that's okay. And you may have policies and procedures, which is also okay, especially if you've got, other people on your team. But the biggest thing is the note taking for the sales, because the sales process and the contracts and the things that we promise and all of that sort of thing, sometimes they're not written down. Sometimes they're just the innate way in which we do business, right?
Yeah. And nobody can read your mind.
No, that's so true. So that's really valuable information. Thank you. Thank you so much
Yeah.
for sharing that. Now, what's in the future for you? So if somebody was going to say, okay, Joanna, because I know that you run at Mach 2 with your hair on fire. So, if someone was going to say to you, and being that you're a strategy person and a big picture thinker, do you actually do plan for 1 year, 3 year, 5 years, like we hear that most successful entrepreneurs do, or do you just take it as it comes?
I'd say somewhere in the middle. I really do try to plan 1 year out. I've stopped doing 3 and 5 because I think what the world has shown us in the last few years is
You can't.
irrelevant. There's
Yeah.
too many unknowns. And so I'm a 1 year person. And actually, on Monday, my business partner and I are meeting to plan 2025. So we are really committed to this process. Of course, you can't predict the future, but you want to have a roadmap in place. So we really do that. But for me personally, bigger picture, I think about like, what do I want to be doing? What do I want to be doing? Whether, that is going to happen or not is, I'm really happy right now with, working with other entrepreneurs, lending my expertise, what I've learned. I always say, if I can take what I've learned and impart it on one other person, then it's
worth it.
got real value. And so, but over time, I would like to be less in the weeds. And also, I joke with my son, who's 15, he's in grade 10, that, in 3 years when he leaves for university, I don't want to be in Toronto in the winter. So
Yes.
that's my personal goal is
Sure.
how am I going to get out of here? But that probably doesn't mean I won't be working. I just won't be working from the cold.
Well, listen, you're digital, so you can work anywhere,
Exactly.
right? Yeah, I mean, that's the beauty of being in the spaces that you're in, is that it's completely and totally flexible. Yeah, you can be anywhere in the world and still, service your client to 150%, and even maybe even acquire new clients in the new place that you're in, right? Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, one of the things that we do in the guest blog, Joanna, is we ask folks to share 3 words of advice. And your 3 words many years ago were, "It's only life after all." Give our viewing and listening audience a wrap up of our conversation. Would you still say it's only life after all?
That's still one of my favorite. That's from an Indigo Girls song. I do, because sometimes I find myself still, after 20 plus years of being an entrepreneur and being in corporate and everything, it's really easy to start to take things really seriously. And you really have to step back and realize, like, business is business, personal is personal, and all the good things in the world and all the bad things, like, everything comes to an end. And that's just the reality. So whatever turn you're at, I always think to myself, when things are really in the crapper, I know they're going to turn around. And when things are on the high, not that I sit waiting for the sky to fall, but I just know that, like, it's always going to be cyclical.
Sure.
And so you kind of really have to, like, what's the line? You can't stop the waves, but you can ride them.
Right.
So I really try to stick to that. I have to say it to myself sometimes, because, like, I can say for me personally, this past year, I was faced with a lot of challenges personally. And there was times when I was like, it was just so low. And I thought, I just know that it turns around. So that was kind of, so I guess it's like a new version of "It's only life after all."
Well, you know what? I think that you've given our viewing and listening audience some really great things to think about. Not only some tips and practical advice about being an entrepreneur, but some things to think about in the future. And I really want to thank you for taking the time to spend with me today.
Really my pleasure. I admire so much what you do, and I love that you keep doing it. And I know it inspires so many people. So thank you for including me.
Thank you so much. To our viewing and listening audience, I'd like to thank you for joining us today for this edition of Keeping It Real, introducing you to the person behind the logo. If you'd like to connect with our guest, you'll find Joanna's contact information in the description portion below. I'm Trish Tonai, author, artist, and the founder and host for the series. And if you're interested in sharing your business story, visit our website at shareyourstories.online and subscribe to our channel, Business Mentorship, Keeping It Real. Thanks again for tuning in, and we look forward to meeting you next time when we share another great idea.